Hi, my friend, it's Pat Sloan here. Yesterday, I told you a really wrong thing. I made a big boo-boo, a horrible mistake, and I shared it with all of you because I didn't know it was a mistake at the time. I just went willy-nilly along, da-da-da-da-da, yada, 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 telling you all kinds of things about the Jelly Sizzle. And in the midst of all that, I had gone and sewn my blocks together. I had sewn all the strip sets together, which seemed super reasonable, right? Because that's what the units look like, except on the pattern, which I have already made this quilt once. I've done the quilt once. I should have known. These sets should not have been sewn together yet. You need to have 2, 2, and 2 so that you can do the pinwheel part. And I didn't just sew 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I sewed 14 of the 16 of them together, and about 10 o'clock last night I was getting ready to sew number 15, and I went like, oh my, right here on page 1, these should not be sewn together yet because I have to put those things on Friday to make the pinwheel. So let me show you exactly why this is a problem and why I can't just fix it without having a date with Jack. This is Jack, the seam ripper, and I will have a little date with Jack, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But first, let me show you close up and personal what the block should look like. This is what it's supposed to look like. Here's the pinwheel, and what I did, which I already told you, is I sewed the entire block, which means I can't get that pinwheel to come in there. So let me just show you how it's supposed to be. This one I did not sew together yet, so you can see it is in 3 segments. And in here is the square, and that would be going on here, and then sewing the seam corner to corner. And whoops, when we sew it corner to corner, hold on, one-handed, there, that's what it looks like, which is up here. So you can see what it's supposed to look like. These all are embedded. This hard edge of the pinwheel is embedded in the seam then of the strip sets. So what if you just flip these, you think? Oh, I can just flip the 4 corners, the pinwheel will just look different. Oh, my friend. Are you ready? Okay, I'm going to show you what that looks like. Ready? Here we go. And you get a box. Yep, you get a box. It doesn't work like that. If you're doing this just a sew and flip corner, let me just pull the pin out, just a regular sew and flip corner, you have no way of getting a pinwheel. So that, my friend, is how it works. I know a few of you are going to me like, oh no, I can make it work. So I am going to challenge you, if you can make it work, do it today and send me an email with your process. But I can't make a pinwheel unless I embed that wide end within the strip set, which is what the pattern says. So here you go. I'm just going to leave this up for the rest of the video. It's going to be behind me as a wonderful reminder of what we need to be doing. And there you go. So if one of you can figure out another way to make that pinwheel with it as a square, you will get like the Nobel Peace Prize, I'm sure. I'll nominate you. So I'm just going to leave this up here. Plus, if you remember, a good place to put your pattern when you're working on the design board is actually to just stick it on the design board so you don't lose track of it. So we have a few other things for today. It's not all about my mistake. Thank goodness. Today is our block 3 for Will You Be My Neighbor, the sew along. Now remember, I have already done a bunch of my blocks, so I'm going to show you, but I actually have a second version of this one. So here is block 3 in my top that I have. And this is the one, we've got the cute little mailbox and the little flag up, and it's got a sweet little bird up there. Remember, those of you who are allergic to applique, this you could leave off if you wanted to, although there's a couple of sweet birds in here, they just make it. Now I added the heart. The heart is a bonus. So when you go to the page, you'll download a separate PDF with the heart shape on it if you want to do the heart. And then I also, which you'll see pictures of this on the page, I had also done the block in a second colorway. I think I only did these 2 here in the second colorway at the time that I was running that sew along originally. So here I found a little text print. See the text print for the flag on the mailbox? I just thought that was cute. It was little numbers and stuff. So fun. And I've seen a bunch of you working on yours. I have to give a shout out to Half Pint because she is using some adorable fabrics. They're little children and little images, and she's being very thoughtful about where she puts them in the quilt. They're just so darn cute. Super cute. I have my April cross stitch done, the ones that's the little squares that I'm putting on the little hanger, but I want to show you going through the fabric selecting for the border of this one because it took me a little bit. I could have gone a bunch of different ways, so let me show you. So let's take a look at the cross stitch on some border fabric. So it'll be this will be a little bit more than it actually is, but you get the saturated color by, I'll just plunk it on the center. So anyways, there's some dots. Now this guy is really light. He's a really light aqua, and there's a little peach, a little turquoise going on there, a little blue. Okay, so that's the dot. Then I'll sort of go by density of color, like, you know, deepness. So this one's not bad. So he shows up much better than on the light one. This one here has a little less texture going on, so you can really see the little X's and everything on this guy. And this is more tonal, so it reads more towards this looking of solid. So let's go a little bit darker. Here is a deeper turquoise, and that's really dark. Okay, let's try one that's sort of a brilliant blue. And there's actually vines on this fabric and some birds. If I were to fussy cut, you could get a bird on the side. I'm not sure I want the other bird, but that's neat. It's a much brighter blue. Okay, so let's go a little wild. Let's go wild. I've had this piece of fabric forever. Okay. This is a lot of pattern, but I love it. This one really makes me go, oh, yes, yes. Okay, let's try. I tried some peach, but they were too light. So I got this sort of dark pinky red. There's a pinky red with a dot. And this one is a little more peachy. And there we go, which I think looks really nice, but it's very solid reading, which doesn't excite me too much. So which one do you think I'll pick? 1, 2, 3. Let's see what this goes into. I also asked my moderator team which did they like, and there was a variety of them, but there were definitely some that nobody cared for. So that's always good. So I eliminated those. But this is what I ended up with. I ended up going with the teal because I think it felt summery, and it also had, I wanted to have more design element on it. Now the one fabric that I super loved, super loved, is this guy, which I've had for a very long time. It's an older fabric, and even though I really loved it on here personally, one of the things that, of course, I don't think anybody else liked this one, but the thing is, for me, I realized what I want to see is this fabric. So I think what I'm going to do is make a pillow. Just take this piece of fabric, do a little quilting on it, and make it a pillow. That way I can enjoy the piece of fabric, which is really what I want to do. I have yet to use this. I've had this and I keep keeping it. It doesn't ever get given away because I'm like, oh, I just love it. So I think I just need to make a pillow out of it, and that will satisfy you know, my feeling of being able to see it. So I want to see it. Okay, what do we have? I sent out and received emails back from all of our friends for the cookies and the book that I was going to New Homes. So we had Linda, Joyce, Elizabeth, and Sarah all got emails and sent me back. So you can go and see. The question for those was, you know, tell me about an antique quilt you have, or if you love antique quilts, or if you want to have them, you know, something about antique quilts. So it was really fun to read through the comments, and I'll put a link below here. So if you'd like to go over and just read a bit about people's antique quilts, it was super fun. All right, I wanted to first do a quilt news segment because there were some fun things out there. And then I want to show you my cross stitch, my other cross stitch. So, but first, let's do the quilts segment. I have to have my notes like a real reporter, you know, like Okay, the Nebraska International Quilt Museum, which is in Lincoln, Nebraska, is running an exhibit with some of the red and white quilts from the Joanna S. Rose collection that they recently acquired. These are the quilts that, if you've ever heard about the red and white exhibit at New York City, which I have probably talked about several times myself because I was able to go to it, these are the quilts from that exhibit. They were all owned by one lady. The exhibit in New York City was something that her husband gave to her as a birthday present, was a museum exhibit of this collection. So I have the book. They did put out a exhibit book. And a lot of the quilts, there's not a lot of information about them because she really wasn't a researcher of them. She just collected them. But they did a nice job putting the quilts into sort of categories through the book. And I just want to show you this one page that sort of caught my eye. First, it was, a couple of her quilts had words on them. So in the book, you know, there's a couple pages, but this is the second page here. Those two were done with, looked like hexagons or maybe yo-yos. I'd have to look a little closer. But these two were both done by Lavina Rose. So, and they're word quilts. And they are, you know, for wedding quilts, because you can see Charles and Cornelia, and the other is Danielle and Amarilla, and so they're wedding quilts with a message for the happy couple. I just think they're fabulous, just fabulous. And then the next section after this is called Patchwork, and in her collection she had checkerboard. She had a checkerboard quilt. That's like mine, but this particular maker had a border on it. Now these are quilts that she collected. She did not make these quilts herself. These were all ones. She was a collector of antique quilts and I believe many other things. And so if you want to see the quilts in person and you're in Lincoln, Nebraska, you can go to the museum, and I guarantee you, you will love it. You will love it. Okay, another exhibit that has a quilt in it, which is in New York City this time, is at the Africa Museum, or the Africa Center. I'm not sure the exact name of it, but I have a link to it in the description box below. But they have an exhibit about food and how Black Americans over time, and how the food culture came into our culture, everybody's culture. And there's a quilt involved in this. And the quilt has 406, well, it's 406 stories of Black impact on one quilt. So there is a picture. My dad's wife pulled this out of the newspaper for me and saved it. So our paper here, the Washington Post, did a write-up on it. So that's the quilt. Now I didn't see the picture of the quilt on their website. I went and took a look, but it says that's exhibited. So apparently there's a lot more to the exhibit. Okay. Two other things were on the Antiques Roadshow. I like to watch the Antiques Roadshow. I usually try to watch maybe a clip before I go to bed at night. You know, they just do one story, or I just watch one story from a full episode. And the other day I saw two that had quilts on them. The first one was a quilt made in 1936, which I'm going to show you this picture here. This quilt was made by, this is the lady showing it, that brought it to the roadshow, is her dad's Boy Scout badges and, you know, banner things or whatever. And his mother, her great-grandmother, made the quilt for her dad. And it turns out her father and mother both worked within the Boy Scout you know, arena for many years, I guess, as volunteers. They ran the scout camp. Her mom was the nurse at the scout camp. She said she was at the scout camp as a kid, you know, even though she was a girl. So I just think it's wonderful because the design is very timeless. And look at this way you could use patches. Isn't that fantastic? I'm sure a lot of you have somebody in your family with patches, and this is a way to incorporate it into a quilt. Now the other one was found in, I think, North or South Dakota. I can't remember which it is now, but it was a quilt made after 1928, but probably not that long after, to celebrate Byrd's expedition to the South Pole. And the gentleman that bought it, he's the one with the hat on, he bought it and said that he bought it from, his understanding was that 3 sisters. And I assumed from the rest of the conversation that it was nuns. They were nuns, because he went to the academy, he called it, where they were selling off things for a charity or to fundraise, and he ended up buying a whole room of things, and this quilt was in that room, and it's spectacular. Now, the Boy Scout patch one is valued less than the bird one, but they're both just fantastic. And as quilt makers, they, you know, they're short segments, so they're easy to watch. Links are down below. All right, back to my cross stitch, because I forgot to tell you this. The next Joyful Journal for May has the sweet little bicycle, and see the bunny? See the bunny up at the top there, and a bunch of flowers? That one's going to be so cute to do. Now I have to get back to here, the flea market flowers. So I'm going to get back to this guy. I will show you what I have done. And I'm making another commitment again in April to work on it every day, do some cross stitching every day. So I'm just finishing the center of the blue. And then I'm going to do this middle section. So see here? See how it's set up? I'm going to do down the middle, so I'll do the section underneath this red one next. And then I may still go back and pull the center out of this red one. It just bothers me that I didn't use either the colors were too mushy for me, or I didn't use the right shade, but they don't have the distinction of that medallion. So I want to pull that out. So I may end up doing that this month. That might be part of what I do. I'm not going to try to make this like finished by the end of the year. It would be cool if I did, but you know, I'm just doing what I'm doing. It's for fun and not a deadline, not a competition. Many thanks to Kathy, one of our moderators, for the fix, because she reminded me I don't need to unsew the entire length. I can just sew down to where I need on this side and up to where I need on this side in order to put the squares on here to create the pinwheel parts. So it's not a full rip out. You're going to make your blocks for Be My Neighbor, your block for Be My Neighbor. I think this is just the coolest quilt. And then your Sizzle, you want to have your strip sets in threes. And on Friday, when we do threes, I'm going to audition some different pinwheel fabrics. That is the darker turquoise that I have up there, and I have more of that coming because I kind of like it. But I had some other options, and we'll take a look at those and see. And plus, I might have my border. If the fabric comes, I'll have my border by Friday too. That, you know, because the pinwheels go out in the border, I'm doing my added border on it. All right, my friend, I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online. I'm going to see you online with my seam ripper. Bye.